Hey, what's good, everyone? My name is Ryan Thomas, and I'm going to be the host for this TLC session. We're really excited that you've joined us here today for incorporating multimedia to give your instructor guidance and added spark by Dr. Adam Gutschmidt. Please welcome Adam.
Thanks, Ryan, and thank you everyone for attending here today. I hope you find this useful. The way this presentation is going to be structured is I'm going to spend the first half of it kind of talking about the concept of weekly guidance inside the classroom and why it's important and the best practices for it. And then I'm going to spend the second half presenting a tool that you can use, specifically Adobe Spark, and I'm going to go over some quick tutorials as to how to use it in order to be able to create your guidance through it. So let's begin. And for those, weekly guidance is posted in advance of the start of each learning week inside the classroom, and it's meant to serve as a substitute for what would be an in-class lecture if you were teaching at a traditional university. So some of the key things you want to include in it is making sure that there's intellectual elaboration, building off of the core concept that the students are supposed to be learning in the class that week. There's also going to be some further explanation of the assignments that the students are assigned for that week, as well as potentially a way for you to prompt the students on the discussion forum topics that they'll be discussing that week. So that way they have a jumping off point and a way to tackle the topic so that way everyone knows how to participate. From the university's perspective, there's an expectation of a 500-word length minimum for each weekly guidance post that you make inside your classroom. However, as you note, I put an asterisk there because depending on how you design it, you could have, for instance, a 450-word post, but you've also included a 5-minute video with it as well. So depending on what other features you include, there's some ways to work around it, but typically about 500 word is the minimum for it. Now, since coming here to Ashford, I've had the opportunity to peer review a lot of the associate faculty, and in doing so, I've seen a lot of different faculty members in the way that they use guidance, or in some cases don't use guidance. So for instance, there's often some inconsistencies in terms of when faculty are actually contributing their weekly guidance in the classroom. Some of those issues we've seen recently with the transition to Canvas. If you recall, in eCollege, there was a specific section already built into the classroom for faculty members to post their guidance. Now with Canvas, there isn't such a space, so typically instructors are having to put it in as an announcement in their classroom. Beyond that, some of the other problems we're seeing is faculty members not using any sort of multimedia or having any sort of distinct visual element to their guidance. So it's just straight text, which is problematic. There's also no intellectual elaboration. So faculty members are just simply copying and pasting content that's already in the classroom elsewhere into their guidance. Or maybe there's outdated content. You'll see instructors who maybe refer to President Obama as if he's still in office, and it's a case where that they haven't updated their guidance in 3 or 4 years. And lastly, as I mentioned, copying and pasting instructions or other classroom text and just simply presenting that as their weekly guidance. And none of those are really ideal in terms of helping the students and engage them in the material that's being covered in the class. Why is the weekly guidance important? Well, for one reason, it's this concept of social presence, which is something that I've studied and researched a lot, and I'm sure it's a concept most of you are familiar with. When an instructor is perceived to have a social presence in the classroom, the students are more engaged, which is certainly important, especially as we are so focused on retention here at Ashford. Garrison Anderson Archer defines social presence as the ability of participants to project their personal characteristics into the community, thereby presenting themselves to the other participants as real people. And that's certainly what we want to see, some sort of personalization along with the presenting of additional information related to the course concepts. In terms of best practices, then, I frequently will have to coach or train associate faculty members in one or multiple areas of the classroom. And when it comes to helping them with the guidance, some of the suggestions that we encourage them include going beyond those minimum requirements. So not just simply being satisfied with 500 words in their guidance. Elaborate on the course concepts beyond what is stated in the text or instructions. So again, don't just simply repeat what's in the textbook, but add your own personal knowledge or slant to the concepts that are being discussed. Update it regularly, so make sure you're checking the content so that it's always up to date. And the last 2 points here are really what tie into the focus here today, and that is multimedia and that visual flair. So you can give your guidance visual flair through either different choices of font, the use of color, whether it's in the background or the font color, and the inclusion of headings to help organize the information. And then, as I said, multimedia elements, including photos and videos to engage your more visual learners. So then, when we saw that there were ways that guidance could be improved, we wanted to re-examine it in order to see if there's a way that can be presented in a more compelling and engaging way. And when we moved to Canvas, and since there wasn't that pre-established space, we thought this was a good opportunity for reevaluation. As Guo, Kim, and Ruben in 2014 stated, instructors have to find ways of presenting classroom content in a way that takes full advantage of the medium they are using. Now, there are several tools that are out there. I'm not going to say that this is by far the best or the only one that's out there, but the one that I want to talk about today is, I feel, a simple yet effective way of really transforming your guidance and presenting it in a way that students, I think, are going to find interesting and be motivated to read and retain that information. And that is the program Adobe Spark. So at this point now, I want to kind of introduce Adobe Spark and show you what it can do. And to begin, hopefully everyone's going to be able to see this. I've now entered into one of my previous courses, and this is what students see when I create an announcement for guidance. So I just give a simple message that says, "Hello class, please click on the image below to read, watch all the content for this week's guidance. The content in this guidance will not only address the topics being covered this week, but will assist you in completing your assignments this week. If you have any difficulty accessing this guidance, please let me know." And you simply click on the image that is below here. So if we do that, this is going to open up a separate web page that I have created through Adobe Spark, which contains the week 1 guidance for my COM 325 class. And as I scroll down here, you can see it's a columnar design that contains text, images, and videos. So I begin with identifying what the week 1 objectives are, and then I move on and talk about what I feel are the most important concepts for that week, including images, as you can see here, and text, including headings to establish what those concepts are and help the students out. As you can see, here's an example of a video that's being embedded into the guidance as well, related to the topics that are being talked about. And so I just go through each of the different ones, but trying to elaborate on them. And I usually typically take a focus of, with the concepts I'm focusing on, are directly connected to either one of the discussion forum topics that week or the student's writing assignment for that week. And I just go through and cover everything. And a lot of the stuff I try to be funny with in terms of the pictures and videos that I include, just to make it a little bit more interesting and not so dry for the students. And then at the bottom, I will recap or kind of go over once more, from my perspective, what are the important things the students need to complete that week, and any important information related to those assignments that I feel they need to know. And then if there's any other additional weekly reminders, I put it there and conclude with any references that I've made in it. So that's sort of a quick look at what typically each of my guidance looks like through Adobe Spark. So I'll take the rest of the time here and kind of quickly go over how exactly you go about creating that. So the website is spark.adobe.com. When you go there, you can sign up for an account, which is very simple. You can just use your email address and create a password for it. And then once you set up your account, here is my kind of home page for Adobe Spark, where you can see all of the different guidances that I've created for each week in the different courses that I'm teaching. When you're ready to start a new web page, what you do is simply click on the plus button up here at the top of the page. So we'll kind of start one here. Now, there are a couple of different options that you can choose from. The one I'm focusing on here in my presentation is creating a new web page. If we have time at the end, I can also talk about some of the other options that Adobe Spark offers. But what you saw in my example and what I'll focus on here is creating a web page. So when you begin by creating a new web page, what you'll begin is first simply wanting to choose a theme. And if you see it, hopefully you can see up in the top right-hand corner here, there's the link for themes. And if you choose that, then you can scroll down and they have some preset themes that you can choose from for the look of the font of your web page. So I've chosen the Chronicle theme here. And then once you do that, then you can simply add your text. We can oops. There we go. And type in your heading there. If you want to add a photo background to your header, you simply click on photo and choose that. But if you want to leave it just as it is, that's certainly fine as well. But what you're going to keep on doing is keep scrolling down and keep adding elements by clicking on the plus sign here. And each time you click on the plus sign, it will give you options as to what do you want to add next to the column of your web page. So if you simply want to add text, you do that, and it'll give you a cursor to type, and you can choose all the different options. Whether if it's a heading, you can choose either heading 1 or heading 2, depending on how large you want your heading to be. If it's a quote, choose that. If it's a bulleted list or a numbered list, if you want bold or italicized text, left, center, or right justified, all those options are there. Now, if you want something other than text, again, just click the plus button and choose whatever option you want. If it's a photo, you'll see on the right-hand side here, hold on. Okay, you can choose either upload photo if you've got something stored, but you can also have the option of finding free stock photos without any copyright issues in Adobe's database as well. There are also other options to choose. For instance, if you have Google Photos, you can do that as well. And simply upload a photo. So if I want to, let's just find, if I want to add Ashford's banner, simply do that. And it's right include. And then, okay, what do I want to add next? Again, just keep hitting the plus button. If this time I want to add a video, all I'd need to do is copy and paste the URL address, not the embed code, but rather the URL address for the video from YouTube, or if you're using Spark Video, you can do that as well. And it'll automatically upload your video into the page as well. And you just keep going through, and it's as simple as that. There are a couple other options. If you want a button that'll for students to click on to take them to another website, you've got that option. If you want a photo grid or a slideshow, or if you want a split layout. So for instance, if you want a photo and text side by side with each other in the column, you have that option as well. Now, let me go back here. And we'll go to this is one of the guidances I've created. This is for the 223 class. Once you're at a point where you feel you're done, you've got the option to simply click preview, and that'll show you then a version of it as it would display on the website, and you can begin to look and see, does everything look correctly? Is it in the order that I want? And if it's not, then you can simply click the X button to go back and continue editing it. If you feel everything is good and it's ready for publish, then you can go up and click on the share button and click publish and share link. That will then bring you to this page, and there's a couple of different things that you'll want to pay attention to. One is it will give you a shareable link, which if you just simply want to include a hyperlink into your classroom, you could copy that and share that. If you were so inclined, there's probably for this specific purpose with regards to Ash for Classrooms, not a need to share it to Facebook or Twitter, but you do have those options. If you want to email a link to someone, you have that option. There's also, this is with in association with Google Classroom. So we, as far as I know, or at least I don't personally use Google Classroom, but if you were to use Google Classroom, you could use that option. Perhaps most important, though, is the embed code. So if you recall when I showed the sample announcement from my classroom, I used an embed code, which allowed that image to be populated into my announcements for students to click on and access my web page that way. So there's several different options for you in terms of being able to share your finalized finalized Adobe Spark page with anyone that you want to. And again, you have the ability to create as many different guidances as you want. You also, though, have the ability, once you create one, if you want to basically keep the same theme and the same look to the background image for the header, you have the ability, if I were to click on one of these, to basically create a template. So if you wanted the same basic look for each of the 5 weeks that you're creating guidance, you could create a template based on the first one that you do, and then just simply choose, if I go over here to templates, then you can then click create from, and you can create as many pages as you want that all have that same template. So that saves you a little bit of time if you want to do that. If you instead want to have each week's guidance be a little bit different in terms of its look to make sure it's clear to the students, the difference between week 1 information versus week 2, though, you certainly can just simply create a new web page each and every time you want to create a guidance there for yourself. And let me see here. So yeah, and then as I said, you have the ability to then embed that straight into your classroom. If I go back to my PowerPoint here, though, for a second, let's see if this is. Okay, so if you are interested in using this technology moving forward, first of all, as I said before, you're going to want to go to spark.adobe.com and sign up for an account. Again, very simple to do. Just use your email address and then go from there and in beginning to create ones. If you are a faculty member and you simply want to create guidance for your class, you're going to follow the steps that I've laid out for you, where you're going to create a web page for that week's guidance and then use the embed link to put into a weekly announcement inside your classroom so that way students know how to access it. However, we do have one other possibility for some people to consider, and that is creating standardized guidance, where if you are the program chair or if you're someone in your department who wants to have all faculty members use the exact same guidance, you have the option to create the guidance that you want and then share that with everyone else. there's a couple of different things you can do. One is, and we'll be talking about this actually in another TLC presentation later on today, if you've got some sort of community page for all of your faculty members where you can share files, you can simply share the embed code or the URL link to all of your faculty members and say, please make sure you create announcements with those. Or if you want, we've actually begun in the Comm Studies program to develop a way to have guidance be set up in the Canvas shell. So for instance, in our public speaking class, we've been able to set it up so that guidance has already been populated for all 5 weeks in all sections of our speech class. And I can actually go back now and show you that. So if I go to my speech class and I scroll down here to the modules, you will see that there is now for our speech class, because of talking with, in our case, Brian Elward, he was able to set it up so that there's a link now for guidance in the speech class, and students simply now just click on this in order to be able to access the guidance in the speech class. So for our speech teachers, they do not need to create an announcement. The guidance is already set up for them, although we do recommend that because this is still new and students aren't necessarily going to be automatically looking for it, that they make some sort of mention and announcement that as to where to find the guidance for this particular class. So if you are interested in that option, what I would recommend and what Brian suggested to me is contact your specific academic program manager and talk with them about the possibility of having you be able to set that up in your classes if you do want to have standardized guidance for everyone that's teaching a particular course in your program. Lastly, as I mentioned, there are a couple of options with Adobe Spark beyond just the web page. And again, I apologize for going back and forth between so many screens here, but if I do go back to Adobe, let's see here. Yeah, so if you recall when I said when you want to start something, you click the plus button up here. If you want, instead of creating a web page, the one that I think is probably the most interesting alternative is creating a video. And what this is basically sort of a PowerPoint presentation with the ability for you to add your voice. So if you wanted to add that additional level of personalization by having your voice recorded as you talk about all the different concepts going on that week in your course, you can choose to create a new video, and I can even go in here and show you. There are different templates for you to pick from here. Let me see if I can, if I go over here, so for instance, teach a lesson, if I pick this one, hopefully it'll load here. Okay. This is just a tutorial, so we'll skip out of that. And again, you can choose the way you want the slide to display. You can also add a photo or video here, but if you want to record your voice, you would simply hold down the microphone icon here and allow your voice to be recorded. The one limitation that I've noticed is that it only typically allows you 30 seconds of speaking time, so you want to make sure that you're not speaking for any length with any slide there. But you can create a PowerPoint presentation that includes voice, and if you feel that that's a little bit better of a look to the content than the web page design, that's certainly an option for you. There's also preset music cues that you can add in the background as you speak with this Spark video option as well. So there's a lot of different things, but all of it is very simple and fairly easy to figure out. And I find that since I've started this, I probably started it at the beginning of this calendar year, and I'm getting a lot of wonderful feedback from students who mentioned to me how that they've taken notice of the fact that I've used this and that I'm providing them with so much more information. Some of them really like the funny videos or the funny photos that I include, and others just find that there's a really good volume of information that helps them be able to complete the assignments. But I've been pleased with the positive feedback, and I feel a lot of you will get similar feedback in your classrooms from your students if you offer this as an option. Now, I'll stop here to make sure we've got some time for questions about this. I know that I've seen notifications in the chat, but I haven't been able to see specifically what anyone's in, so I apologize if you've asked questions. Hopefully, I can still answer them here with the remaining time that we have. Let me pull it up right now and see if there were any specific questions. Gina had asked about sending students to a site outside of Ashford Canvas. I have not personally run into any issues with students having to go outside, nor have in talking with any of the program managers or the course developers heard any issues with that. There's always a bit of a problem or risk with something like that. To this point, though, especially because of the embed code, I have not yet had any problems with that. As far as I know, I did not have to pay for Adobe Spark. So as far as I know, it is a free service. I think there are upgraded accounts that would charge you, but everything that I've showed you here today is from a free account. And thanks, Dan. I see you've already addressed some of these questions as well. Yep, just copy the embed code. Let's see here. Nancy, yeah, and some of the, again, Dan, thanks for answering some of these questions here. Let me go down here. Diana, with regards to work on apps and phones, again, I primarily am using my desktop computer, so I have not personally seen this, but I've been using it for over a year and have not heard any issues from students saying that either videos aren't playing or that the images don't display or that they're having difficulty reading any of the content. So I'm hopeful that from a scaling perspective, there are no issues with this when students are accessing it. Tony, I feel that in terms of technically you have the ability to add all those. I think it was from just a programming perspective, just a little bit easier and quicker for me to set everything up in Adobe Spark as opposed to trying to type out all of that information in a regular announcement through Canvas. That's just a personal thing, and what I would also say is that it's very easy to then repopulate moving forward with future sections of the course as well. But certainly, I think the one kind of takeaway that I do want to make sure is that while I've offered Spark as an option, my bigger promotion is the fact that faculty members are finding ways of using multimedia and incorporating visual elements, whatever method you're using, to create your guidance. So if you don't like Spark and you want to do something else, but as long as you're trying to make your guidance dynamic and visually appealing, that I think is what's most important. I know we're just about out of time, but any other questions? Hopefully I've addressed everything here. If not, though, you can certainly email me and contact me, and I'd be happy to discuss any of this further with all of you.
Well, thanks so much, Adam, for giving us a tremendous presentation and explaining how you're engaging your classes through your, dynamic instructor guidance. Super big thanks to everyone that joined in on this session. We have another session coming up in just 15 minutes, so just stay logged on. Enjoy the rest of the final day at TLC, and have a great day.
Thanks.